There is currently an ungodly amount of snow outside of my house right now. I'm in the middle of a blizzard. Thank you, you stupid groundhog. I want your head on a silver platter. But when the world is quiet and there's no one out on the roads and stuff like that, you start to think to yourself. You have these internal monologues, maybe thinking about things that you've thought about from time to time, but the world is so busy, you can never really focus in on it. But with the quietness of the storm, I've found myself thinking about a situation involving the Nintendo Switch 2 that I really can't make sense of anymore. It used to seem like it was pretty cut and dry. We understood the parameters. We understood what was going on with this. But as time has gone on, we've devolved into multiple different tiers, multiple different things happening with it. And I feel like if I am getting confused by all of this, other people are probably getting confused by all of this as well. What is the rhyme or reason for Nintendo Switch 1 games getting this variable pricing on Nintendo Switch 2 systems? Because it doesn't really make sense. It really does not make sense. So I want to talk about this out loud with you guys, and maybe we could come to some sort of understanding with this. Maybe we could come to some sort of realization as to why things are the way they are. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I might lose my mind as we go over this in this video, but that's okay. It's not like I haven't lost my mind before, and I probably will lose it once again. So what are we talking about here? We are talking about Switch 1 games on the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, backwards compatibility, very important for people, and upgrades are always nice. Being able to play Switch 1 games that maybe didn't have the same sort of visual clarity or frame rate on your Nintendo Switch 2 and getting a nice bump in resolution or a nice bump in frame rate is something that is very good. Now, when the Switch 2 was first unveiled, we were introduced to two different tiers of pricing when it came to how this was going to be handled. If a game featured new visuals, you were going to get a $10 upgrade. If a game featured new visuals and new content, it was going to be a $20 upgrade. We learned about that with things like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Those two games got $10 upgrades as they moved into higher resolution, higher frame rates, and had things like HDR support. Games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land ended up getting additional content added into it as well, along with Super Mario Party Country Bear Jamboree, so that was bumped up to the $20 tier, thus making those Switch 1 games from $60 on the Switch 1 to $80 on the Switch 2. Obviously a little bit ridiculous, you know, but okay, whatever. And then some Switch 1 games got more incremental upgrades for the Switch 2 for free. But some of those games, like Super Mario Odyssey, actually added in a little bit of different lighting and HDR support. So it was kind of weird that was not getting the same sort of treatment. But then you have to look into the physical editions of this, because it seemed like they were only charging you when there was a physical edition involved, because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, of course, got re-released as Switch 2 editions, along with Super Mario Country Bear Jamboree Party 77, and of course Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So if you get a Switch 2 edition of a physical game, then you charge more than you would if there's just a Switch 1 upgrade for the Switch 2. But then it's kind of weird that they didn't do a Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Odyssey, because I feel like that would have sold a lot. I feel like that would have sold more than Kirby probably did. I mean, Mario is a bigger IP than Kirby, so why did that not get a Switch 2 physical edition? Do Switch 2 physical editions really matter all that much? But then it seemed like, okay, you know, we figured this out. This is how it's going to be. Everything is now understood. Everything is now fine. If it's visuals, it's $10. If it's added content and visuals, it's $20. But the Zelda stuff is also in the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, where you don't have to pay for it. But we'll just leave that out because we don't want to muddy up these waters any more that they are already muddied up. But 2026 has been an absolute shit show for this sort of pricing. Everything we knew about this has now been thrown out the window completely, because now there's a new competitor in the field, the $5 upgrade. Now, what does the $5 upgrade get you? Well, let's take a look at the two games that have been given $5 upgrades thus far in 2026. Animal Crossing got a $5 upgrade that included Switch 2 specific features and enhanced visuals. Now, content-wise, it's not really new content because there was a free update to Animal Crossing that released on the Switch 1 as well that had the same content that was added into the Switch 2 edition. However, there is things like Switch 2 specific features with game chat and mouse control and stuff like that, and somewhat of an enhanced visual fidelity, at least that is what they are saying. Now, that was a $5 upgrade. To me, that seems more like a $10 upgrade, if not a $20 upgrade, because you are including additional things. However, that did get a Switch 2 physical edition that retailed at $65. So now you have $65 Switch 2 editions, $70 Switch 2 editions in the case of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and $80 Switch 2 editions in terms of Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and of course Super Mario Country Bear Jamboree 69. Okay. All right. And then there was Xenoblade. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Switch 2 Edition. Just rolls right off the tongue. Once again, this was a visual upgrade up to 60 frames per second, up to 4K visuals. That kind of messed things up a little bit in handheld mode, which is really weird because all these websites were so quick to glaze how awesome this patch was. But after people actually started messing around with it, they realized it wasn't all that great. Some people are requesting refunds on it as well. And now they're all kind of backtracking it, just being like, oh, well, we were initially impressed, but upon further inspection, it's like, well, maybe you should have shut the fuck up initially then and not just rush to get something out there because the update just dropped. Anyways, that is a $5 upgrade as well, with no content added into it. Once again, a $65 physical release for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of this game. So what constitutes a $5 upgrade comparative to the $10 upgrade? Is the $10 upgrade gone? Would that mean that the $20 upgrades are coming down in price? No. They're not, because now you have Super Mario Wonder and Bella Bella Park, Gullah Gullah Island, whatever the fuck it is, coming out for $80. That's getting a Treehouse presentation tomorrow, but all that stuff is pretty much multiplayer. Now, there are 2 additional characters that you can use in the game and a new power-up, but that hardly seems like a $20 upgrade to me just to be adding in mostly multiplayer elements into it. But RGT, they're adding in new content with the characters. I knew that's where you were going with this. I knew that that is what you were going to say. And I have come prepared. Because I might seem slow, but I'm always 2 steps ahead of what you and other people are thinking. Because I could think of a game that was a Nintendo first-party game that also got a Switch 2 upgrade in 2026 that actually added in a new character, better loading times, and sharper visuals. And where do you think that fell into? That sounds like it could be any tier at this point in time, because now the tiers are just all muddied. It just depends on what the game is, pretty much, I guess you would say. That could be a $20 tier. New character in a single-player game seems like a big deal. Could be a $10 one. Well, maybe it's not big enough to have its own, $20 promotion, $10. Maybe they go for the $5. No. It's free. And that is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which added in enhanced visuals, better loading times, and Dixie Kong as a playable character for the first time. Now, and they didn't do a Switch 2 physical edition of that with the better stuff. And Donkey Kong to me seems like a bigger IP than Xenoblade, but maybe they want to make up sales for Xenoblade, so getting a physical edition is better for that. But then why would Super Mario Brothers Wonder also get a physical edition, but Super Mario Odyssey didn't, but Kirby did, and Super Mario Party Country Bear Jamboree 420 got a physical? Like, why is this so convoluted? Like, it's not even really a big deal. I just like consistency. I like being able to see something and being like, okay, I understand what this is going to be. But it seems like it's the wild, wild west over there. Will Smith, Cisco, are going straight to the wild, wild west. It's like, how are we deciding these things? What constitutes getting a Switch 2 physical edition versus what doesn't get one, to where some games get a big run-up of promotion from it, some are just stealth drops, like, oh, hey, look, here, like Donkey Kong and Xenoblade are perfect examples of this, because both just dropped out of nowhere, but one of them had a $5 upgrade, Xenoblade, and one of them didn't. One of them got a physical Switch 2 edition, Xenoblade, and one of them didn't. I wanted to make this video to hopefully understand things a little bit better. But if anything, now that we're pretty much wrapping this up, I'm left with more questions than answers. I think I have more questions than when I started this. And I think it really boils down to, I think the main question with this is, what decides what gets a Switch 2 edition physically? What is the barometer for that? Because there's nothing consistent about the games that get a physical Switch 2 edition. It's not file size. It's not, popularity of the IP or something like that. It's not the amount of content that's been added into it. There's no consistency with this. You could, a Switch 2 edition might cost you $80 to get the physical, or it might be free for your upgrade for your Switch 1 game. And this all makes sense to Nintendo. This is all fine. Damn you, Devin Pritchard. Damn you. I'm just kidding. It's not Devin's fault. If anything, it would be Doug Bowser, because that's when this was starting to happen. But realistically speaking, it's Nintendo of Japan. I still don't understand it. This video didn't help me understand it anymore. And I hate everything, including the snow and the stupid groundhog. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments section down below. Maybe you can make better sense of this than I can. I'm going to go lose my sanity watching the snow fall. I have some leftover pizza I'm going to heat up. I didn't lose power, so that's good. Thank you. Knock on wood. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.